Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Shootout. I'm Anthony Corby and I'm joined here today by Elise Spedding, and today we will be talking about our Stanley Cup picks for this coming 2020 Stanley Cup final. So Elise, who do you got?
So, for the Eastern Conference, I honestly think that the Flyers are going to pull through. And this is not just a personal opinion. I mean, now they're starting the season with Carter Hart, which is already showing to be an amazing goaltender and really working for them. I mean, they're 2-0 at the moment. But I really think he's going to help them a lot, especially starting the season. And for the Western, I think that the St. Louis Blues, are going to go back up. Last year, they really showed how they came back from when they were more down in the conference, and then they really pulled up and went all the way to the Stanley Cup and won it. So, yeah, I think they're going to keep going.
I gotta go with the Avalanche and the Hurricanes. I mean, the Avalanche have had this coming for a long time. They've essentially been the Winnipeg Jets, except managed to actually complete a rebuild. And then on the Hurricane side, they weren't expected to go anywhere last year, and they went all the way to the third round. They did get swept, but nobody really expected anything out of them in general, and the rebuild is officially ended for them. That one season where they're in that kind of bubble where you can't really touch them because the rebuild is over and they went farther than anybody expected, that's been popped. So they have something to fight for this year. Here's why I don't like the Blues for the West. The Blues are the defending champs, and what the defending champs usually do is have this sort of championship hangover. And the Blues haven't had that yet, but they don't have as much motivation, I would say, as teams like the Avalanche or the Sharks or, any other Western competitor really has. And for the East, the Flyers are still getting over that rebuild. I just don't see them. Maybe they make the playoffs this year. Maybe they don't. Anything can happen as long as you get in. I just don't see them taking down powerhouses like Carolina and Tampa Bay and teams like that.
Well, you see, with the Flyers last year, after the new goaltender coming in so late in the season, even just with that, even though they were so late, and at that point no one thought they were going to go in the playoffs, they almost did. And for here, from the starting at that point, I feel like they should be able to make it to the playoffs. And
That's
once
fair.
you're in the playoffs, you've seen in the past where you can just keep going and, stuff happens, miracles happen. And for the Blues, I feel like someone has to start somewhere, the defending champs. They have to win once to keep going. And I feel like they really, once they got that taste last year, I think they really, really won it again. And I think they learned a lot last year, which they'll take those tips, those new tricks that they've learned, and bring it to this new season. And I think that they'll definitely make a run for it and most likely probably get into it again. And for your teams, for the Hurricanes and stuff, or especially the Avalanches, how are you sure that they're not going to choke? I know that the Lightnings, that's what happened last year. They were the best, and then they just choked in the playoffs. So how are you sure that they aren't going to do that?
Here's the thing for Carolina. They are not the Lightning. They don't have that kind of past experience of choking. I mean, even with last year and losing to the Bruins in 4 games, they don't really have that tendency of being a team that chokes because they were a wild card team last year. Nobody even expected them to be playing Boston at all. And the fact that they went all the way to the third round and they just came up short of the Stanley Cup final, that serves as motivation for them. But I'm going to focus more on the West because the East could be anybody's game. Here's why I think the Avalanche are better than the Blues. The Avalanche have Mikko Rantanen and Nathan MacKinnon. They have these 2 solid leaders that they've essentially built their team around. With the Blues, the leader you could say is Alex Pietrangelo, but the main reason that the Blues won the Cup last year was Jordan Binnington, who's this young guy, and I have faith in Craig Berube to be able to continue to lead the Blues, but I don't think they can go to the Stanley Cup final in back-to-back years, only because Jordan Binnington is still young. I don't want to call it a fluke, but I don't think that it was a season that is going to be repeated, or a type of scenario that is going to be repeated by them, where they're led by their young, no longer a rookie goaltender who stands on his head and carries them to the Stanley Cup final. And they were one goal away from elimination against Dallas, too. And they were one game away from elimination against Boston. So it could be anybody's game. I think that it has to be Colorado this year, just because they have a better leadership group. And if the Sharks continue to play poorly like they did to start the season, then they definitely have a really good chance of the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah.
All right. So that'll be all for this edition of Shootout from Elise Spedding and Anthony Corby. We bid you adieu and back to the studio.